I am so excited to have Natalya Berdikyan with me today, a fellow EO member from Spain. Natalya, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Natalya is the CEO of Life by Design, where she combines her coaching certification with her corporate and entrepreneurial experience. Having lived and worked around the world, she is so wise about life, about energy, about so many things that trip us up about entrepreneurship. And so I want to get right into it, Natalya. Thank you for being here today. Let's start with your really amazing story. Share with us a little bit about your life journey.
Thank you. My life journey. So I come originally from Moscow, and moving all the way from post-Soviet Union in the 90s to California. You can imagine Moscow, California. Having lived in 4 different host families, being an exchange student since the age of 16, for me, life is basically my oyster, and the sky is not the limit. As life proves, we put a lot of limits on ourselves and collect all the baggage that comes with it. And then we sort of try to go back to where we started without all of that baggage and limiting beliefs and stuff. So my journey going from Russia to US and then ending up in Europe, where I am in the past 25 years, more or less, I've lived in 5 different countries, and now intentionally back to Spain, where I live by the sea and totally love it here. Gives me a lot of energy, and everything then between was a beautiful transformational journey, a journey towards consciousness and journey towards myself. And it's like, the more I know, the less I know type of thing. So Socrates was right. So yeah, what else would you like to know?
Okay, so you talk a lot about energy management, and especially as entrepreneurs, I think we burn out or we tend to push ourselves too hard. And I know you're very passionate about this topic of managing your energy for effective leadership. Talk to us about, what does that mean to you, managing your energy?
What it means to me? Well, what can we really do without having any energy? Imagine you have all the time in the world, but you have no energy, no motivation, no engagement. You just feel like, or frustrated, tired. How does that?
So that, yeah, I don't, thankfully, do not have that issue most days.
You're one of the lucky ones.
But tell us how, I know you're an entrepreneur. Tell us about what happened. I know you owned a chocolate business and you seem to have had it all. Talk to us about what happened to you personally as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And that's where the whole energy leadership comes into play. So it should have been the sweetest of times. I was running my chocolate factory and I loved the business. And somehow, after my morning chocolate production tours, I was sitting at my desk feeling completely drained and exhausted. Like you said, I had the picture perfect. It was growing business. I mean, chocolate, for crying out loud. Beautiful business, beautiful family, beautiful house, everything. And somehow it didn't feel right. The picture perfect just didn't match with what I felt internally. And part that I was just overwhelmed from everything. And of course, it's difficult and overwhelming to run a business, any business. But when something is not aligned internally, it's even harder, because the one step we take feels like 10. And at the time I was going into my meditation trainings, going to the gym. So I was sort of on top of things by the books, all the EO events that I went to, but somehow it didn't fix it. It's like I felt something was wrong and I wasn't good enough. I did everything I could, but I felt like I wasn't good enough. I could do more. I should do better. And I had all these expectations that I was living up to, as we all do, performance, achievement, having that great identity, being part of XYZ communities, and it gives a lot of pressure to perform, pressure to continue, although one might not necessarily feel that that's the right thing. And so that mismatch or that disbalance of not being aligned, and that's why I felt extremely drained and exhausted. And I switched completely by going to realizing at one of the EO events that something just didn't feel right. And it was that misalignment, the lack of alignment with the values, because I can tell you chocolate and sugar was not part of my value system. And that was one of the mismatches among many, actually. Yeah, so I had to change it. So I did.
Okay, so tell us about what happened. Do you remember what Warren Rustin said when you were standing on that mountain, having this moment? Was it something he said, or was it just something that you just became clear to you?
It was, I mean, he said beautiful words, and it's all about that, you know, the legacy, the purpose, and that can only be possible when one is aligned. And I was standing there thinking about the chocolate factory and the people and everything I actually loved. And I was realizing this cannot be it. I can make impact and have that sense of fulfillment from doing what I do by changing more lives, by helping people to be well, to do well. And that started with myself. Okay. So, and I went through the whole transformation, got into a coaching, got into certifications, also became a yoga trainer, breathwork trainer, out of all things. And that consciousness journey that started with myself, I bring to others, because I believe that all entrepreneurs can move from the place of struggle, overwhelm, and stress, and lead their lives and their businesses from a different place and have that sense of fulfillment and satisfaction without all that stress and drama, if they have the right tools. So that's where I come with the tools.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so maybe you can share some tools of some of your secrets with someone who's listening today who may be experiencing what you're explaining, and they feel unfulfilled, they feel a lack of energy or a lack of passion or excitement for what they're doing. What are some of the steps someone can take to kind of transform their life? It sounds like you got out of your business and went into the helping business, and you're fulfilled because you're making an impact, right? So that's one way to do it. And I find myself that purpose-driven entrepreneurship really is very meaningful for many entrepreneurs. But give us some ideas, Natalya. What do you think an entrepreneur can do?
So it's any emotions that we feel, whether it is a lack of satisfaction or fulfillment, but also frustration and anger and towards whatever that can be happening. It's feeling at the effect of life situations and people and feeling stuck. All of that, we all feel like that in one moment in time, several moments during the day. It can be anything, really, you know, whether it is the employee or the results and the numbers. It can be the weather or someone shouting next to you, and just, you know, we are getting affected. So the whole intention of using energy leadership is really get in control without having to control with your emotions and thoughts, and understanding that it's actually, we're not at effect of external situations and people, but actually at the effect of our own thoughts. So being aware of our thoughts and coming to the tools, being aware more about our thoughts and how our thoughts are affecting our feelings and actions, understanding what kind of energy is at the core of our thoughts. Why do we think the way we do? We might have the right, or it might be based on limiting beliefs and fears and interpretations and assumptions, that baggage that we carry from the past and believe it's true, and it's actually weighing us down, and we're making decisions based on that versus the real situation. And so I start helping people to get to the real who they are, then following with the why, the what, and the how. And only when it's aligned, when the who is aligned with the why, and the what and the how, the strategies that get us where we want to be can be put in place. And that's a beautiful journey, you know. That's what makes me more fulfilled than chocolate and sugar those days.
I love it. I love that. I love what you said about getting to the who they are, right? Because at your core, like, what's your legacy and what do you want to be remembered for? And I think what you're saying is very accurate, that a lot of us start our businesses either in our 20s before we even think about those things, about leaving a legacy. Like, who thinks about that in their 20s when they're starting out? But then when you start getting into your 40s and 50s, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I spent half my life doing this. And, you know, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? You know, you're clearly not super passionate about sugar and chocolate, especially being like on your health journey, right? So it's almost like unaligned with what you're trying to do. But so your advice is saying, figure out who you are first, what kind of legacy you want to leave, and then why do you do what you do? And then everything else kind of.
It's really the who, starting with what are the roots. You know, we can't have apples from a pear tree. And understanding what gives us energy, what gives us joy, all of that is important. Understanding the why really comes afterwards. And we all talk about purpose, and lots of people come and say, well, I don't know what my purpose is or what's the meaning, but it doesn't have to be just one. There's several. It is, you know, in the business, it's in the personal life, it's in the professional, it's in the health, and the physical. There's so many. So fixating on that unidentified purpose, trying to find that northern star and feeling lost without having one, it's just also very draining and overwhelming for people. So yeah, helping people through that journey is beautiful. And you mentioned health. How long can you drive a car without stopping and refueling it? You need to stop and refuel, right? And how often do we do that for ourselves? And how do we do that? Taking that rest and pause and recharging. Not enough. Entrepreneurs are all about going, and it's all about performance, and it's all about keeping face, or they start judging themselves that they don't do enough, or they taking the rest or going on the retreat while their team is working, or leaving their spouses behind or whatnot. And all of that, just the thought alone of the judgment, drains their energy and keeps that down from being their optimal self. So I mean, yoga for me is one of the tools, but I love the breath work, and it doesn't have to be so complicated. It can just be long, deep breath. You know, a good yogi can do one breath during 1 minute. I mean, imagine how long you retain. But you can take a few seconds, 20 seconds for one breath, and a couple of these just bring you back to who you truly are, and slow down, and to help you move forward faster and give that clarity and the time to respond rather than react. And I practice that more and more. I mean, it's fundamental. You can do it without, you know, change, while talking to someone, while driving a car. And yoga for me was a great experience. While you are in a certain pose and keep breathing, if you still experience pain and discomfort after 2 long, deep breaths, normally you are actually more at peace with it. But if you are still uncomfortable, you can change it. And the same in life. Whatever situation that comes, that is challenging. Couple of breaths, and you have a different perspective, a different feeling to it.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And I love what you're talking about with this energy about pushing yourself, right? I feel like that's very masculine energy in our environment. Men are all about like winning, performance, success. I feel like the feminine energy is more about taking those pauses, breathing, not feeling like we need to control everything, but kind of put ourselves in like that manifesting, receiving mode, which I love. I feel like that is your energy. And I think that, and I resonate so much with it because as a feminine entrepreneur, I do feel like there's a lot of power and a lot of, taking that pause, taking that breath. Maybe what's happening right now is for the best, and I just can't see it right now, right? And so knowing that life is a journey and we're also being guided to our journey, and accepting some things that may seem, negative in the moment, but really could be something positive, driving us closer to, purpose and meaning. So I love that.
Definitely surrendering is a big part of it. And I really love the Buddhist philosophy of it, that nothing is perfect, nothing is finished, and nothing is permanent. So with that, you take away the judgment, you take away the pressure, and you still improving, and you have continuous improvement continuously, and it's being your better self and getting more results. But because you focus on the journey and the feeling rather than that fixating on that goal, you actually achieve more, you feel greater because you have more access to the potential and the power within in that moment. And you mentioned about the feminine. What's funny is that I mostly work with male entrepreneurs, as they actually need it more in that sense, because giving them that permission to slow down even for a minute, and I'm literally mean a minute, makes such a huge difference in their life, because they have so much pressure that lots of it is self-imposed, whether it's family, business, the reputation, all of that. That's a lot, and they don't have the right outlet. It's great they have forums within EO and you have a like-minded community, but it really helps them to see a different perspective and look at it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And since we are on the Growing Global podcast and we're talking about global entrepreneurship, and you and I chatted a little bit before this session, and we talked about the big difference between American entrepreneurs and, Europeans in general, and why is it that Americans are dealing with depression and so many mental health issues? Tell us from your perspective what you see, because you've traveled so much around the world and you're living, in a European country. Talk to us about, what is the big difference between US and the rest of the world you've seen?
Yeah. Well, it's hard to generalize, of course, but it's because there is such a culture of performance and achievement. People are having a challenging time with it. I mean, they keep going and they keep pushing through. And of course they can go to their optimal potential, but it's exhausting. Actually, what happens from the energetic standpoint, when we are under stress or in that state of, fear and overwhelm, and our body creates the hormones that help us to push through the stress, the adrenaline and cortisol. And we think, well, great, I'm going to push through the stress and keep on going, doing more. I can do it. Of course you can. The question is how long and how sustainable is it? And what are the results, the outcomes, the effects on the body? We might not realize it because it sort of creeps in, but then you see the male functioning, the going into burnout, or having bad eating habits or nutrition, lack of sleep. Lots of clients saying, well, I can't sleep. I wake up in the middle of the night, whether it's worry or overwhelm or God knows what. Dependencies, alcohol, overweight, you name it. And what's shocking is that a lot of people find it normal to be on antidepressants, on sleeping pills, on I don't know what other pills, just to keep them going and functioning. I have seen those energy booster thingies. I haven't actually seen them here, and apparently it was in America, and several of these energy boosters or caffeine boosters or whatever, but that's not how the body functions. It actually has its normal natural processes, and if one needs those extra stuff for normal day-to-day functioning, that means something is fundamentally off. And so connecting to the body and start listening to the body, because the body never lies, as opposed to the mind, because the mind can tell you anything and you'll believe it, but the body doesn't. So reconnecting back to the body, and hence was the breath and all that, those practices are great. Pausing and refueling the car, you know. In Europe, it's more about the quality of life, and in the sense that we work to live and not the other way around. And one can have no money and be happy and fulfilled and do good and be good, and one can have a ton of money and success and experience all of these things that people do, you know, overwhelm, stress, they push self, they push the others, it affects their relationships, their health. I mean, what good comes from that? There is a way to do it differently, that you can have both. And that's why I really love doing what I do and supporting entrepreneurs on their journey to move away from that stuff that puts us down, and erase and become the leaders with higher consciousness, with more energy and more access to their power, without all the other stuff.
I love what you're saying. First of all, I think you and I talked about, you know, my first trip to Italy, and I was like 23 years old, and I've never, you know, I hadn't traveled a ton outside of New York at the time. And New York in the US is like the hustle bustle epitome of what hard work is. People are working till 10 o'clock at night. Your friends are not even calling you out because that's like normal culture. And then visiting Italy and seeing, you know, all the stores shut down at, you know, for siesta in the afternoon, and families getting together for lunch, and really, you know, just having wine in the middle of the day, and like just going to coffee shops and meeting with friends. And it just seemed like utopia. It seemed like this is what it means to live life. And I'm so blessed. I feel blessed that I had that experience at a young age, because it really put things in perspective. And then I look at my friends that are, you know, burning the candle on both ends, and, you know, having issues or being overweight, and it's painful to see. But, you know, as an outsider, you're just looking at, you know, people in the situation. I think the more in touch we are with the quality of life. And I recently just gave a goal setting workshop to a group of women, and we talked about the life wheel, and having, you know, business is just one slice of the pie, but there is your health, your spirituality, your community, your family. Like there's so many other things. And success is not just about having success in one area. True success and happiness is about finding a balance and harmony in all of those areas, and giving all those areas attention, because, you know, what do you have if you don't have your health, right? So I love your message. I love what you're sharing. And it's just so lovely to meet with you. Tell us, if there's anything you want to add, or anything that we didn't talk about that you want to add to this episode, share with us, please.
I welcome people to be more aware of the energy, what is affecting them, where they are feeling what gives them energy and what drains them their energy. That can be as simple as that. And to really pause and refuel. And it can be a few minutes every hour. It doesn't have to be complicated. And I welcome people to look at the energy leadership tools. I have plenty on my website that are free, and look into how can they lead themselves, their life and their business as a more conscious leader. And it's out there. They have a choice. And that's beautiful. And if I can support them in any way, wherever they are on their journey, I'm here for them.
Well, thank you, Natalya. What do you do when you see one of your employees, when it's not you that's burnt out, but you see your employee doing that? Any advice to entrepreneurs that have employees that are driving themselves really hard?
Yeah. So whatever works for us works for other people. So having the awareness where the people are on their journey. So it's not just about the results, sort of, that the person is not performing or is taking too much holidays, or being sick days in US more. Well, here people take sick days or holidays, and it's hard to fire people in comparison to US, for example. Very difficult and very expensive. So understanding and connecting with who they are, who their people are, what gives them energy, what is influencing their energy, because there's plenty of things that can influence their energy, their environment, their office space, their mental, are they having an interesting function and a job, or is it too boring, or is it too difficult? Connecting with all of that and understanding what's happening, their physical influencers, sleeping enough, the nutrition, maybe too much coffee, maybe too little water, all these things. Social influencer, are they having the environment, the like-minded people, or as I call it, heart-minded people? That's beautiful. The spiritual influence, are they aligned with what they love, with their purpose, with their beliefs, with their values? So it has nothing to do with religion. In spirit, are they in spirit with themselves? Because when people they actually are at their best, they feel great, they perform great, they resonate that energy. So being a bit more aware of what's happening, and having those conversations with people. We also have an assessment, a 360 leadership assessment, that goes deeper into looking at conscious leadership competencies, and also measuring the energy or the potential when everything is great, because we tend to be in a certain way when everything's great, right? But how are we under stress or under perceived stress? What are our default reactions? Feeling like a victim and helpless and stuck, or being an aggressor and being frustrated and start blaming others? These are still toxic, kind of negative energy, catabolic energy, as we call it. Or are they more looking at creativity, collaboration, supporting others, looking for win-wins, being a creator of their experience, and looking at opportunities and learnings rather than at problems? All of that, there's plenty of stuff, but having the dialogue with self and others, and really looking behind, under the surface, that's where the gold is.
I love what you said about the victim and the aggressor versus the collaborator and creativity, because it reminds me of the empowerment dynamic. Have you heard of the triangle, where you have the victim, the rescuer, and the persecutor, versus the coach, creator, and challenger? And I think that's so beautifully said. Who are you when you're triggered? Who are you when you are not in a good place? Yeah. And to work on that before you're triggered, right? To work on those qualities. And you gave me, as you were talking, I was thinking, it seems like what I'm reading, what I'm getting from this is that maybe you keep a journal of when you're triggered, to figure out what triggers you.
Definitely. All of the things, looking at what are you tolerating? You know, it's all good to be having coping mechanisms and keep going. I thought of myself, well, in that sense, for decades. I tolerate well. I can keep going. I can, you know, go through and survive and all of that. Of course, the question is, what are some things that are fundamentally not touched and covered? Where am I actually suppressing emotions? Because is it really good enough? Is that really the life I want to have? Is it connected to my passions and purpose? Are these people giving me energy? Is this situation serving me? All these things, but at times we just keep going and we are tolerating. So what are we tolerating, and what is affecting us in all these negative, draining ways? And journaling and noting that, and looking at patterns, and slowly moving towards more what gives us energy, and leaving behind what doesn't. And sort of, if you had to start from a clean sheet, what would you paint on it? What would you draw? What would you take with you? And what do you want to leave behind? Honestly, like really honestly. Same with teams. If you are to build an ideal team, how does it look like? How does it feel like? If you don't have to drag everybody with you, what would it look like? What would it feel like? You know, that stuff.
Love that. Love that. I also always say when an employee's giving us a hard time, or we're having an issue with someone, I'm like, is this person giving you energy? Or they're sucking your energy? And then the answer becomes clear. If they're continuously, sucking your energy, it's time, to say goodbye to that person. I love this conversation so much, Natalya. I feel like we are so aligned in the way we think. I'm glad we're talking about it and bringing awareness to this, because in our age today of so many behavioral health issues in the US, it's at an all-time crazy high. And I worry for our society, for our kids, for our community, to see this much burnout. And change has to happen, and change starts with conversation and talking about it. And so tell us, obviously, if someone is in need of your services, where's the best place they can find you, and where could they connect with you on social?
Well, I'm everywhere. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, just put Natalya Berdikyan as it spells right here, and you get to me, or www.lifebydesign-academy.com.
Such a pleasure. Lovely having you. And hopefully we'll meet in person soon. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.